The median full-time worker in America made about $62,000 a year in 2025, and still millions felt broke. So here's the uncomfortable question. If your paycheck isn't tiny, why does your life still feel expensive? Because this story is not about being irresponsible in some cartoon villain way. It's about what happens when normal people try to survive in an economy that keeps quietly moving the finish line. This case study represents real financial patterns and real-world data. From 2021 through 2025, prices didn't just jump once and calm down. Inflation hit hard, then lingered. So even when the headlines got less dramatic, the grocery bill still acted like it had unfinished business. Meet Daniel. He's fictional, but brutally representative. 34 years old, customer support team lead, decent worker, decent guy, not reckless, not rich, and definitely not the kind of person who thought he'd need a 5-year rescue plan. Daniel earns about $62,600 a year before tax, which sounds respectable at family dinner, and sounds less respectable the second rent, insurance, groceries, and minimum payments walk into the room. Based on an average tax setup in a moderate-cost U.S. city, his take-home pay is roughly $4,000 to $4,200 a month. Estimated. Not terrible. Also not magical. His monthly life looks normal. Rent and utilities around $1,850, groceries and eating out around $600, transportation and insurance around $700, student loans $240, credit card minimums $330, and a few quiet little subscriptions that breed in the dark. You see the problem, right? Nothing in that list screams luxury. No yacht, no champagne budget, no, I bought a tiger because manifestation told me to. And yet, he's still short almost every month. So the gap gets covered the modern way. Swipe now, regret later. His credit card balance climbs to about $11,200 at an interest rate above 20%, which is the financial version of running on a treadmill that charges admission. He also has $18,000 in student loans. Not catastrophic by national standards, but when cash flow is already suffocating, even ordinary debt starts to feel personal. His emergency fund? $900. One car repair, one dental bill, one weird Tuesday, and the whole plan falls apart. And Daniel is not some rare financial disaster specimen in a glass case. In 2025, only 55% of adults said they had 3 months of emergency savings. That means almost half didn't. 63% said they could handle a $400 emergency with cash or its equivalent. Which sounds okay until you realize 37% could not say that. By mid-2026, the U.S. personal saving rate sat at about 3%. 3%. That is not a cushion. That is emotional support lint. Housing didn't exactly help. In 2021, 30-year mortgage rates were mostly between about 2.65 and 3.18%. In 2025, they were roughly 6.15 to 7.04. Same dream, very different math. Renters felt it too. National median gross rent in the latest census comparison hit around $1,413 a month. That's rent plus utilities, not rent plus peace. And average U.S. consumer spending in 2024 was over $78,000, with housing and transportation alone taking about half. So if your budget feels trapped, it's not always because you love coffee. It's because your top 2 categories came armed. That's the shocking reality. Daniel didn't fail because he was lazy. He failed because small leaks, high interest, and expensive essentials formed a team and jumped him in a parking lot. But here's where the story turns. Not because he found a secret stock tip. Not because he took a crypto course taught by a guy in a rented Lamborghini. Because one ugly month finally became too ugly to ignore. The breaking point was simple. A surprise car repair, a minimum payment due, and a checking account that looked like it had given up on him emotionally. And this is the part most people skip. The transformation did not begin with investing. It began with stopping the bleeding. Year 1 of the 5-year reset was not sexy. It was an audit. Every app, every subscription, every small convenience, every insurance premium, every grocery habit, every late-night boredom purchase. He found the first big lever in housing. He moved from a solo apartment to a cheaper place with a roommate and saved about $450 a month. Painful? Yes. Powerful? Also yes. Then transportation. not by teleportation, sadly. He shopped insurance, cut unnecessary driving, delayed replacing a still functional car, and pulled another $150 to $200 a month back into the budget. Then came the death by 1,000 clicks category. Streaming, food delivery, random shopping, premium memberships, convenience fees. The tiny monthly vampires. He cut hard and saved another 200 or so. He also added a modest side income, about $300 a month, doing weekend tech setup and customer service overflow. Not glamorous, but boring income still spends beautifully. Suddenly the math changed. Between lower housing, tighter spending, and side income, he created roughly $1,000 to $1,100 a month of breathing room. His first target was not becoming wealthy. It was building a $1,000 emergency buffer so that every surprise didn't have to go on a credit card, like a cursed family tradition. Then he used the debt avalanche method. Everything extra went toward the highest interest card balance first, while minimums stayed current on the rest. Simple, repetitive, emotionally unexciting, and brutally effective. At more than 20% interest, those cards were eating future Daniel for breakfast. So every extra dollar sent there was like buying back his own time. By the end of year one, his credit card balance was no longer exploding. It was down to roughly $3,000, and for the first time in a while, the trend line was finally pointing the right way. A few months into year two, the cards were gone. Not because the economy became kind, because Daniel stopped negotiating with the numbers and started obeying them. And that matters, because the Federal Reserve's household survey found that 59% of adults had at least one major unexpected expense in the prior year. In other words, surprise is not rare, surprise is scheduled. So year two was about protection. He grew his emergency fund toward 3 months of lean expenses, not luxury expenses. That meant a target around $9,000 to $10,000. At the same time, he finally captured the full employer retirement match he had been leaving on the table. Free money is still free money, even when life feels rude. Year three was quieter, which is exactly what progress often looks like. Less panic, more automation, student loan balance falling, retirement contributions inching up toward 10%. And something weird happened. The drama left. No more financial jump scares every time his phone buzzed. No more pretending not to check the bank app. No more math performed with denial. Year four brought another hidden reward. His credit profile improved. Better habits, lower utilization, fewer emergencies, which meant cheaper borrowing, better options, and less punishment for past chaos. By year five, the transformation was real, but not fantasy. Estimated result: no credit card debt, student loans cleared or nearly cleared depending on rate and consistency, about $14,000 in cash reserves, and roughly $25,000 to $30,000 invested for retirement. His net worth, which began around negative $24,000 when you counted debt against savings, could realistically move to positive $40,000 or more over 5 years. Not guaranteed, not viral, just real. And here's the most important part. Daniel did not become rich. He became stable, which to a stressed middle-class household can feel almost illegal. He bought back sleep. He bought back options. He bought back the ability to handle a broken tire without needing a spiritual crisis. So what should viewers learn from this? First, income matters, but cash flow tells the truth. You can earn a decent salary and still be losing the game every month. Second, housing and transportation are usually the giant levers. If those two stay bloated, cutting coffee is like bringing a spoon to a flood. Third, high-interest debt is an emergency, even when it doesn't feel cinematic. A 20+% credit card balance is not a convenience tool. It is a future income predator. Fourth, there is no single number that means comfortable. Living costs are local. MIT's living wage framework shows that housing, healthcare, transportation, and taxes shift the whole story depending on where you live. And fifth, a 5-year reset works because it respects reality. It doesn't ask you to become a genius. It asks you to become consistent for longer than your old habits can survive. So let me leave you with the question Daniel had to face. If nothing changes in your money life for the next 5 years, not your habits, not your debt, not your spending, where exactly do those numbers take you? Because the scariest part of financial collapse is not the drama. It's how normal it feels while it's happening. And the most hopeful part of a financial reset is this: ordinary people do not need a miracle to change direction. Sometimes they just need the courage to finally look at the numbers without flinching,